Okay, so Viltrox recently sent me this 28mm f1.8 full frame autofocus lens to test out, and I'm going to share with you my thoughts on this lens. It is a $379 lens, which is very reasonable. And, of course, the question is it any good? So I put it through its paces, took some pictures, did some tests with it, and I'm going to share all of that with you. And at the end of this video, I'm going to give one of you this lens because I am going to give away the lens. So stick around and check out if this lens is right for you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about specs of this lens. As I mentioned, it is 28mm. It is f1.8 autofocus. Okay, it does not have any image stabilization built in. Filter size up front is 55mm, which is pretty nice. And in the back here, we do have all metal contacts. And one nice thing, USB-C port for easy updates for this lens when firmware updates become available, and Viltrox does definitely put out firmware updates. Comes with a little lens hood here, and that lens hood is also reversible, so you can spin it around the other way and attach it to your lens for easy storage. So the lens itself feels good in the hand. It is all metal. It does have a manual aperture ring, so it clicks into auto, so you can use it in auto mode. But once it clicks out, it does smoothly slide across. Okay, my only reservation with that is that you do need a little bit of force to make it slide smoothly. So if you were using it for cinema work, I'm not sure. I really kind of actually now like the lenses that have that click button that give you the option to click aperture changes or dial it in smoothly. But it does rotate smoothly, just with a little bit of force that you might introduce maybe a little bit of camera shake in there if you weren't very careful. So aside from that though, great build construction as always by Viltrox. I mean, honestly, what it comes down to is they are making very quality lenses at reasonable prices. And hey, that's good for all of us, right? Because competition is always good. Hopefully it helps to drive down the price of lenses because we have more competition. But all that's great, but how does it shoot? And is this lens for you? It's 28mm. So let's talk about that for a second. What do you use 28mm for? Well, it's not as wide as a 24, right? And it's not a 35. It's kind of sitting right there in the middle. And a lot of fixed lens cameras actually do come in 28mm. So because it is that kind of in the middle spot, and almost, I don't want to call it a do-everything lens, because it's definitely not a do-everything lens, but because it's in between the 24, the wide end, and the 35mm, it gives you a little bit of variety of what it can do. So definitely landscape. It's not as wide as the 24, but it's not bad because it's 28, right? So landscape definitely. It's definitely not a portrait lens, but it is good for street photography, and it's good for environmental portraits. So what's environmental portraits? Well, let's say you're on vacation and you want to place a subject in a certain location, right? Because the location that you're at is just as important as the person, or maybe not as important, but you know what I mean. Just as important as the person that you're taking the picture, because you want to show that that person is in whatever place that you happen to be on vacation. So you want to capture a lot of the background, and you're going to have your subject in the middle. You're not going to get too close with a 28 because of distortion. But so environmental portraits, again, landscapes, street photography, maybe a little bit of architecture, but it's really not wide enough for architecture. Definitely not real estate, not wide enough at all for real estate. But like I said, it does kind of hit that sweet spot in between. But of course, is it right for you? And that's the only thing that matters. So let's take a look at some sample photos so we can see what this baby can do, and some sharpness tests and see how sharp it is. Okay, so let's look at some sharpness tests here. So this is at f1.8, and you can see it looks pretty good, although we don't necessarily have really great resolution in between the lines here, and I think you can really see that And it's always hard to see on YouTube. Let's zoom all the way in at 200%. You can see how the lines there start to blur. This is at f1.8, and overall the sharpness does look quite acceptable. Let's go up a little bit to f2, and you can see at f2 we're already really starting to fill in our resolution there, and you can see distinction between the lines. So f2 is looking a lot better. Step it up to f2.8, and not much difference, but a little bit sharper there. So that's f2, f2.8. And now let's jump up to f4. Now we're starting to really see a big jump in sharpness there. And f5.6, which is looking amazing, perfectly sharp. Let's jump up to f8. And again, we're seeing a lot of definition, but 5.6 is a little brighter. But in terms of sharpness, I think they're really just about identical. And then as we pass f8, you'll see we start to drop resolution. So now we're at f11, and you see it's just not quite as sharp as f8. So really from 5.6 to 8 is the sweet spot for this lens. So here's 11 again, and then f16 again. We start to see some drop off now in resolution. So in terms of sharpness, right around 8 to 5.6. Nope, that's 4. I went back too far. Here's 5.6. Looks phenomenal. And even f4, actually. F4 looks great as well. So that's f4. Let's switch now to f5.6. Just a little bit sharper at 5.6, but I really think that's the sweet spot, 5.6 to 8. So, yeah, but overall, for the price point of this lens, sharpness looks great. Okay, so some sample images here. So this is at f14. Now what I did here was I took about 5 or 6 images and I brought them into Photoshop and applied the median filter to remove the people that were walking through the shot back and forth in front of the museum. So that's why this is a PSD, if you happen to notice that up here, but it is shot at f14. And I just want you to look and see that in terms of sharpness, the image is quite acceptable at f14. And you can see all the way down to the front here. Things look really nice. And all the way to the back. And not as great at the back there, but still, when you zoomed in that far, I think we would always see a little bit of a loss of sharpness. But zoomed out, it's quite an acceptable range of sharpness. And I think that the image does look good, even at f14. Which, when we looked at that sharpness test, we did see the drop off from, above 11. Okay, so here we are at f1.8. Of course, that's the beauty of having a f1.8 lens, is we can take pictures at night. Here is a good example of an environmental portrait shot at f2. So we are placing the person at this scene. The scene is important to us so that we know where the person is. So an environmental portrait. All right, so especially, valuable, like I mentioned earlier, if you were on vacation, you're going to take a lot of environmental portraits. That's just kind of something that people do. All right, so here we are again at f2.8. And just want to look here at straight lines, right? So if you're going to use this for architecture, one of the key factors is, can the lens produce straight lines, or do we see bending and curving in those lenses? And you really don't see that here. I see a lot of straight lines. So in terms of architecture, I think that this is a good lens that we could use for some projects with architecture. f16, again, remember f16 we did start to see a drop off in sharpness, but we do have an acceptably sharp image here all the way through. Okay, and again, we're zoomed in at 200% here, so you're going to expect to see it a little bit blurry, but, that's also to bring out the detail that you're going to lose in a YouTube video, because if I zoom this into 100% with the compression and things like that, when videos get uploaded to YouTube, a lot of times you lose that fine detail. So I'm going into 200% purposefully here so you can see, what I'm trying to demonstrate to you. Again, perfectly straight lines here, so a great choice for architecture and things like that, travel lens. So that's always nice to see. And here we are at f4, and again, great color reproduction, but that of course is just, the Nikon camera at work there. But great straight lines. We have, a nice bright image at f4, even though the ISO did go up to 18,000, and I did apply some noise reduction in Lightroom to make this image look the way I wanted it to look. But with 2 minutes of work in Lightroom, I mean, the image absolutely looks fantastic. And really what it comes down to is anytime you're using any piece of equipment, you're always going to work that image a little bit. And so I don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to show what a finished product looks like here, right? Because obviously you're always going to apply a little bit of noise reduction. So, but in terms of the brightness of this image, the color reproduction, the resolution, the sharpness, everything looks really great. And again, for the price point of this lens, a sub $400 lens at f1.8 autofocus, I think you're definitely getting your money's worth. Okay, so I did mention at the start of this video that I was going to give away a copy of the Viltrox 28mm lens, and so I am definitely going to be doing that. Take a look down in the video description for the link to enter, and I hope that you win. Oh, and by the way, it is very nice to see your smiling face again here on YouTube. I appreciate you watching this. Hey, also, we have a Nikon Facebook group for Nikon Z users, so if you're on Facebook, check out the video description for the link. It is a good community of supportive people there, and we try and keep it drama-free. So, hey, thanks for watching, YouTube. I appreciate you, as always, and if anything helped you out, please help me out by leaving a comment and saying hello and hitting that like button and subscribe. So, thanks for watching, YouTube. See you on the next one. Bye-bye.